Hey friends, it's time once again for Once More with Feelings. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Beth, and we are a podcast that talks about our feelings and watches movies and then talks about them some more.
Yes, all the feelings.
So, Michelle.
Yes.
At the time of recording, it is your birthday weekend.
Oh, God.
How you feel about that?
Old.
You feel old?
Yes.
1 year older or like much older than last year?
I don't like odd numbers, and I'm turning an odd number, and I don't like odd numbers.
I'm with you on that. I kind of don't like it either. I like to have even numbers.
Yeah, I don't know why it makes things just a little bit off for me for a whole year because I don't like odd numbers.
Yeah, well, 23 isn't a bad age, so you'll be fine.
23 with like, let's see, 27 years experience.
We call that level 27 thing.
Or 28 years experience, something like that. I don't freaking know. Again, when you go from like one classroom where you're working with people who are a little bit older than you or just about your age and you all get each other's jokes, to now I'm working with people who I could have birthed.
Yeah, well, that's how it works.
Yeah, it's a little off-putting.
I mean,
and it does
some
make
of my
me feel,
bosses are half my age.
It's just off-putting. And like I said, I make references and nobody gets them.
Yeah, well, they're not going to.
I know, and I hate
We didn't get the references our parents
I make jokes all day long, and I feel like I'm just, I'm no longer the cool kid.
I mean, to be honest, though, I mean, they're a different nerd if they're a nerd. Everybody's got a different nerddom.
They're still young enough to not want to admit that they're nerdy. Or maybe one of them.
I mean, I was nerdy all my life, and I enjoyed it. I never even thought about the fact that nerds were a pejorative.
I know. I mean, I did. I knew it was something people were definitely bullied for being. But also, it took me growing up to realize I didn't give a shit. I like what I like.
No, I get that.
And, got tired of hiding it because I did. I would get embarrassed at the things. I mean, the fact that, and it's funny because we were just talking about this today because we were talking about Barbie dolls at work, weirdly, that I had so many like Barbie dolls that were like in practically mint condition growing up. And then I had my She-Ra castle and my She-Ra dolls. And when I turned 12, I had a big sleepover. And the girls at my sleepover made fun of me for having them. So I gave them all to my sister, who is 7 years younger than me. And my sister, I say within the year, destroyed them all.
Yes. Again,
I'm pretty sure she still has that Barbie head on a keychain that she painted purple and cut the hair off of. Pretty sure she still has that. That was my favorite Barbie.
Sounds a bit spiteful.
That's her.
So how do you feel about that?
About the Barbies? I'm still pissed.
About getting older.
I mean, it's...
About your birthday. How do you feel about your birthday?
How do I feel about my birthday? I mean, it's my birthday.
We had a big to-do last year.
Yeah, but I turned 50 last year, so that I wanted a big...
It was a good big to-do.
To-do, yeah. We did an escape room, and that was fun, because,
And we escaped, by the way. We did make it out. No one died.
We're here. It was Clue-themed, and that made me happy, because, I love Clue. And
we spent it with the kids.
Yeah.
It was nice. Mexican restaurant.
We should have done Clue. So it would have been funny doing Clue on my birthday.
Oh, yeah, that would have been a good tie-in, yeah.
That would have been funny, but we did not do that.
We can't because you locked us in.
I locked us in with the trivia that nobody answers. Y'all need to start answering these questions, y'all. I give them out, so I want you guys to answer. I want you guys to try to figure it out. It makes it fun for me.
So what is it that we're going to be talking about today?
Well, if you could guess from our clues last week that it was Richard Gere who spent 3 months learning how to tap dance for a scene that he filmed in a very short period of time, like half a day, then you would be right if you guessed Chicago. The 2002 Rob Marshall directed film.
Yeah, so Chicago is a 2002 American musical black comedy film based on the 1975 stage musical, which in turn originated in the 1926 play. Aha! That's where your thing came from. I didn't want to spoil it for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, because they made a film in 1927 from it, and that was the
Right.
one that we were just looking at, because I did not know that.
It explores the themes of celebrity, scandal, and corruption in Chicago during the Jazz Age.
Yes.
Hasn't changed much since the Jazz
No.
Age. But the film stars an ensemble cast led by Renee Zellweger, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Richard Gere. Chicago centers on Roxy Hart and Velma Kelly, two murderers who find themselves in jail together awaiting trial in 1920 Chicago. Roxy, a housewife, and Velma, a vaudevillian, fight for the fame that will keep them from the gallows. The film marks the feature directorial debut of Rob Marshall, who also choreographed the film. I did not know that.
I didn't know that either, because he did other films.
Yeah, and was adapted by screenwriter Bill Condon, with music by John Kander. I think it's Kander.
Kander, I think.
And lyrics by Fred Ebb.
Yeah, Rob Marshall, he also did Into the Woods, the second Mary Poppins.
That makes total sense then. Of course he did.
He did The New Little Mermaid, and he did Memoirs of a Geisha. He did a few other things, but those were he did the remake of
musical
Annie.
Theater, then.
Yeah, he does a lot of musical theater. Now, the movie or the play was written by Maureen Dallas Watkins, and she was a journalist in Chicago. And she was inspired by the trials of Beulah Annan. I'm not sure how to say that. Annan. And Belva Gartner. And these two women were accused of murder in the 1920s. I believe that, so Belva is the Velma Kelly character. She was a cabaret singer Belva was a cabaret singer. And she is the Velma Kelly of the situation. And Beulah was the inspiration for Roxy Hart. And when Watkins, she was just like trying to satirize the sensational, newspaper / court hearings of the time, because it did get a bit crazy. And I know that IMDb had a little excerpt about it as well. And I'm going to read that to you really quick. I know y'all can look it up yourselves, but why do that when someone's going to read it to you? So it says, the play Chicago was Maureen Dallas Watkins' retelling of two very public murder trials that occurred in Chicago in 1924. Those of Beulah Sharif Annan and Belva Gartner. Watkins covers these trials for the Chicago Tribune and wrote the character of Mary Sunshine as a self-portrait. There's something about Mary Sunshine I will get into in a little bit too. Belva she had a really less glitzy fate than Velma Kelly, but she was acquitted and went on to have a few other run-ins with the law, but ended up living like a semi-normal life. She died of natural causes in California in 1965 at the age of 80. But Beulah, which is the Roxy Hart character, she had a not so good ending. It's true that she was acquitted of murdering her lover, and she did have a really good high paid lawyer to get her out of it. She did repay her debt by publicly divorcing her husband, even though, because he's the one who paid for all of this stuff for her. But she was married 2 more times after her death, and from tuberculosis. 4 years later. 2 more times in 4 years, and then died of tuberculosis. So, yeah. The thing I thought was interesting is I love plays. It is one of my things, and I used to live closer to New York, so I got to see a few Broadway plays, but Chicago was never one I got to see. So I don't know what the actual play is and the differences between the movie and the play, and apparently there are a few. But Mary Sunshine is actually in the play, according to what I had read, supposed to be portrayed by a man in drag, where you don't know that they are in drag until the end, when Mary Sunshine makes a reference about things aren't always what they seem, and then somebody rips the wig off and it becomes a thing. The choice of Christine Baranski, I think, is just because Christine Baranski can sing, and she can do that kind of, that characterization of Mary Sunshine is just...
Right.
And I always thought the name was funny because, the Mary Sunshine of everything is always like the person who's always seeing the brighter side of things. And now seeing like this characterization of quote unquote Mary Sunshine, she does see the brighter side of it, regardless of what's going on. She's always looking for, oh, you poor dear, she's trying to find like the angle of positivity in this horrendous murder, and regardless of who it is.
Right.
So I don't know. I just think that it's fascinating where the stories come from. And I'd love to do some more research on these two women. I didn't because, again, this isn't a history. As much as I love the trivia and the history, it's not that type of a podcast, folks. Maybe another time we'll do a historical murderess type of thing.
So how do you feel? How did you feel when you first saw Chicago? I'm not sure if you saw it when it first came out.
So I did see it I didn't get to see it in the theaters because of circumstances in my life at the time. 2002, I had just had my third baby. I was not going anywhere in life. I mean, it was a big, weird situation and time for me. But I was excited. I was excited about getting to see this because I hadn't been able to go see a play in a while. And it was like, oh my God, they're doing Chicago. I remember wanting to go see Chicago. I don't know, so because you didn't grow up in the same area I grew up in. So did you
Not
get
at
like,
all.
You didn't happen to get commercials for Broadway plays then?
No, we still got commercials for them.
You did? Okay, so do you remember the commercial with BB Newirth doing all that jazz?
No.
I saw that all the time, and I'm like, I know her. She's from Cheers and Frasier, like I knew BB Newirth. And she was Velma Kelly.
Right.
And she's singing all that jazz in the ads. And I just wanted to see it so bad. So when this came out, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about those actors because I didn't know if any of them could really sing. I didn't know Richard Gere can sing. And I mean, he's not the best singer, but he's not the worst.
Oh, no,
either.
actually, he's got a pretty extensive listing of singing in different movies.
Because the affectations that they give Billy Flynn, it's that Chicago.
But that's what he's keeping with in this.
Yeah.
And he keeps to it pretty well.
He really does, because it's even with his talking voice, it's there.
They almost hit that transatlantic accent.
Yeah, but not quite, because it is, it isn't exactly that area, and it's not a New York accent that he's singing with. It is a Chicago accent, which is very different. A lot of people thought it was a New York accent.
Despite the name Chicago.
It says it on the label, folks. It says it on the label. But so I was very, very excited to see this movie. And I didn't know all the songs. I all that jazz, and I think I knew Mr. Cellophane. And I fell in love with that whole entire soundtrack. I listened to it all the time. It was my go-to for house cleaning. It was my go-to for just getting my brain to reset. I would put on Chicago. Again, I was going through a lot of shit in my life at that time. And it was definitely something that pulled me through. So as we were watching this, I was remembering a lot of like moments in my head, good and bad, that I could relate to these songs because of how often I played the CD.
Right.
But it was definitely, I was very excited when I first found out about it. So how did it make you feel when you first learned about this or got to see it?
I mean, it may surprise you to know I was completely indifferent. So my taste in musicals runs differently than yours, I think. I am less jazz. I am more of and this is going to be right in the makeup of where I grew up and everything else, is Music Man. And
if you say Oklahoma, I'm leaving right now.
Well, I mean, you can leave if you want, but no, not really Oklahoma. I actually have never seen it. I know the songs, but it was the Music Man. It was Little Shop of Horrors.
Aww.
It's the kitschy films, those are the ones that pulled me in.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that the music really like meant something to me. The Music Man, because he is a con, but he has a heart of gold. I mean, I love that, idea. Whereas in Chicago, it is a black comedy. And when they're saying that black comedy, it is not, it's dark in the way that, death is associated with it and in many ways. And it's really cavalier about it.
Mm-hmm.
But
it really is, though.
when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is, for one, very surprised Catherine Zeta-Jones could sing and dance.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, because everybody, like you were saying, everybody did their own singing, own dancing.
Right. I was struck because the first time I saw her was in Mask of Zorro.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent film. Loved it. Except very sexist, but still loved it.
Definitely.
But she is so dainty there.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, she is built like a shit brick house.
Her and Renee Zellweger. Did you see those muscles on her arms?
Well, yeah, but she's still very petite.
Oh, no, she's
Catherine
very
Zeta-Jones is like built like very, like I was like, she is very broad here. And I don't know if it's because Renee Zellweger is so small in stature and in girth.
Probably.
That she's so lithe that Catherine Zeta-Jones just looks, in comparison, much stockier. But she not saying
not
she's
in a bad way. No,
unattractive at all. She is built. I mean, they obviously put a lot of time and effort into sculpting their bodies to be.
Yes.
Also, all the dancing, that's going to do it to
Well,
you. The hours of practice.
So her hair was, we know Catherine Zeta-Jones always had long hair. And then you see the Velma Kelly hair, which is that bob, that 20s bob. And I had always thought it was a wig because, why not a wig? But she actually cut her hair. They wanted her to keep the long hair, but she didn't want it getting in the way during the dance scenes because she knew she was going to dance. So part of why she's a little bit thick, though, is because she was pregnant.
Okay.
Yeah, she was pregnant.
I was just struck by like how stout she was.
No.
And I wasn't
not thick. I mean,
definitely
and I don't mean
like a judgment of her body, but I'm just saying I noticed that she was so like, I was like, is she bodybuilding? 'Cause she's so like, really built. And Renee is so lithe.
Yeah.
Her musculature really aims towards compactness, And
honestly, I have to give her a lot of credit because I know that at the time, and I do remember this, she got a lot of shit because she was heavy for Bridget Jones in 2001.
Right.
And then she lost like 30-something pounds to do Roxy Hart. And then shortly thereafter gained the weight back for Bridget Jones
That's
too.
That's going to kill your body. Just murder your hormones.
She did it very smartly. She was doing aerobic exercise. She was eating very specific foods. She wasn't like eating just to gain the weight. She was eating specific foods to help her healthy gain weight. I just remember like all of the fat shaming assholes out there talking about, the weight gain, the weight loss, the weight gain, when now like looking back and actually like doing my research and learning about it, she did it very healthy, very controlled. She didn't make herself unhealthy for it. So I have to give her credit because I know that that's a problem with a lot of actresses.
It's very hard to do that to your body no matter how you do it. So it's a dedication to your craft or to your art.
Oh, definitely. And she's always been. I would love to see the movie she did for Judy Garland. Judy.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, every ad I've seen for that, she looks just like Judy Garland.
So my thing is, I was so surprised that anyone in this cast could sing. The only one I wasn't surprised was Queen Latifah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not surprised by
Morton.
that. Although I was surprised by her comportment in the role. I mean, she usually like does her thing.
Yeah.
Her thing, not the roles thing. She kind of acts outside the role.
Yeah. But she played Mama Morton.
She played this to the role itself instead of playing against it or outside of it.
This cast is actually...
Not saying anything she did was bad in any other role she's had, but she does often just play herself.
Oh, no, definitely. I mean...
And in this, she really didn't. She did play against that and into the role itself. And I was pleasantly surprised with that. But this isn't a review.
No.
I don't have an attachment to Chicago. I like the music, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the jazz part more than I enjoy the other parts of it.
Yeah.
And I don't care for jazz that much.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of jazz. I wouldn't listen to it independently, but there's something about that 20s, that rag, that just that the feel, it wouldn't be the same without the time period.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy for white cis het people to really fall into the 1920s are great because they were, that's their whole projection is like
Oh, no,
the
the 20s
famous
were
white
horrifying.
people of the time and stuff. But all I could think about when I was watching this is that the musicians, the black folk that were there, that were musicians,
Mm-hmm.
the one gentleman, I don't remember his name. He's in everything. The man is in everything.
The band leader, that was Taye Diggs.
Yeah, Taye Diggs. He is in everything, and he's really good at everything he does. I'm actually surprised. I mean, he didn't have a part here, but he is a good singer, so obviously he could have done anything. But, the thing is, I'm looking at it, dissecting the movie.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, all the injustices. I'm labeling them out. I'm parsing them in this scenario because it is not my movie.
Yeah, and I get that, because you're looking at it with a historical lens.
I'm looking at it with an analytical view. I'm not looking at it to enjoy the story.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem, is it just doesn't grab me. Mine is about whenever the story comes up, it's the injustice of it.
Oh,
and not
yeah.
for the men who died.
No.
I'm talking about for me, the injustice in Chicago is the women. The sexuality that you'd referenced when we were watching it,
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I said you're seeing sexuality here is because I honestly didn't see it. It's the mechanism.
Well,
sexuality is like, it's like a doorknob. A doorknob is a mechanism to a portal.
Mm-hmm.
It is how you get through a door. It is not the door. It is not the means by which you go through the door. It is just the thing that opens the door. So sexuality there, for me, defines that breakdown or that parsing of the injustices that women face. And then we're just talking about cis women here, because if we get into the transness of it all, we'll never get through this, because 1920s was horrible for almost everyone, except white men.
So I get where you're coming from. And I want to touch back on that in a second. I was literally going to say, though, that I know I do that all the time, but I do get back to it eventually.
No, I'm saying I threw a lot at you. I just threw a dump truck of information.
It's fine, because I do have so many thoughts right now. I was going to say that I thought it was a very diverse cast, and I thought it was a very diverse movie. Now, I get what you're saying, that yes, they had all of the people of color doing these menial jobs, but the role of like Mama Morton, they wanted Kathy Bates for it, but Kathy Bates was doing something else. It's from what I have seen and what I do know of the play, it's not always a person of color playing Mama Morton. She's the matron. And even if you look back historically, would the likelihood of the matron in the women's prison being a black woman probably highly, like, not improbable, It's not most likely going to happen. It's going to be a white woman. And so seeing that, and then like the heiress as Lucy Liu, that, throwing Lucy Liu in there, yes, she has a very tiny little part with, I think, like 3 words.
And a kick to the balls.
And a triple murder. But it's still, it diversified the cast to in a way, even though...
Yeah, this isn't about the casting of the film.
Oh, no. I know you're looking at it historically. And like I said, I was going to say I thought it was very diverse. But again, yes, historically, 1927... Chicago, this would have been the whitest of whitest whites, and then yes, the people who were of color would be the people on the people who ran the theater, the people who were behind the scenes.
Well, the band,
yeah. So if they were in
the orchestra,
and if they worked in the prison, they were either going to be people who were either in the prison or working behind the scenes in the prison. So because they weren't going to be the people of any power in that prison. it and what you were saying about the sexuality of it, my point with that was, yes, there is sexuality, but it is definitely more on the sexist side. But the sexuality in it is more so the differences between, like when you watch Velma Kelly dancing in the beginning, and even when she's doing her dance, what she's trying to convince Roxy to be her partner, there is a sexuality to the dance in the sense of the clothing. There's a sexualization is what I'm looking for. That's the word. The movements, the dances themselves, all that jazz. There's writhing, there's bodies touching, there's skimpy clothes. Even though it's the 20s, it's still very, very risque and the ideas of it.
I would say especially because it's in the 20s.
Because it's, yes, even if it is burlesque, it's still above. But then you look at the dances and the performances, the ones that are...
I would say pre-burlesque.
Yeah.
That's vaudevillian, so it's pre-burlesque, but yeah.
But when you look at the Billy Flynn performances, his songs, they are... We're not going to talk about... Not the They Both Reach for the Gun, but when you look at the Billy Flynn song and the Razzle Dazzle song, they are very sexualized. But from a man's point of view, it is definitely the male gaze at that point. You are looking at these women. The one scene is him leaning on a staircase, and it's all the women's asses at the screen.
He's
you're looking
literally riding in a car made of women.
Yes. So this is his fantasy. So to me, of all the characters in the play or the movie, he's the villain in a way, because yes, he's getting them off. But these are people who actually, nothing against Velma Kelly and Roxy Hart, but they murdered people. They deserve to be in jail. They murdered people.
Yeah, there's this overview of the movie. Okay, so if you take the movie and you break it down into these little parts, and we're talking about parts of the movie, the storyline itself.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm going, also above that, going the justice within that time period,
mm-hmm.
and how when I see that sexuality, it's like a double-edged sword. It is used against them, but it's also something that works for them.
Oh, yes. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they got to use their sexuality, like I said, the empoweringness. Is that a word? Empoweringness?
The very thing that empowers them is also the thing that marginalizes them.
Exactly.
That is the issue I have. I'm never going to get past this need for justice. Now, whether or not that's social justice or whatever,
mm-hmm.
it's really dependent on what I'm thinking about, I guess. I don't really know. I haven't really seen how far it goes.
I've never really put that much deep thought into the movie Chicago until
That's
now.
what I'm thinking the entire time. It's very hard to enjoy a movie where I'm so worried about the injustice of things. And
I'm just bopping along to the tunes.
And see that because they don't necessarily grab me. Now, I'm not saying they're not earworms,
mm-hmm.
because they are.
I literally have Billy Flynn in my head right now. Just the beginning of it.
Right. But for me, it's about the system itself, because even in the film, you see these huge, like, movements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And like the women in the prison, they start competing against each other out of sheer desperation for their plight.
Yeah.
For where they're at. Now, whether they're there's only one innocent woman in that prison.
And she is the one who dies. That's,
right.
Yeah.
So everyone, but she is not competing with anyone. She doesn't try to compete. She asks for his help. He ignores her and walks away.
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't try to like form up teams with anybody, but the rest of the women in there, the one that dies is the one that does not compete.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, says a lot about a patriarchal society in which this type of thing is expected and a component of that society.
Mm-hmm.
Women competing against other women, despite the fact that none of them are the ones that are marginalizing each other.
No, I completely agree with that, because these...
And it has nothing to do with jazz. I can't. It's really hard to get past that. I'm sorry. But
no, it has. the jazz is the background, hon. It has nothing to do with action.
No, I'm saying like the storyline,
It's
Roxy
not.
Hart doing her thing.
Because she wants to be famous, and she's overly ambitious, where honestly, I can't blame Velma Kelly killing her sister and her husband, because, I mean, that would put me over the edge, too.
No,
I don't blame her. Now, Roxy went about things wrong, because Amos was too good for her.
My heart goes to Roxy at the start.
At the start.
Because, well, there are a couple of reasons why. One, Amos, the only reason she's with Amos is because that society dictates you need a man.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a man, you don't have any worth to society. So my heart doesn't go out to Amos. He is expected to have a wife. She is expected to be a wife.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, he has the power in all of this. Even if he doesn't play that, even if he doesn't realize he has that privilege.
True.
Roxy is a prisoner. She is in a gilded cage. It's a dingy ass gilded cage, but it's still gilded.
Mm-hmm.
She is trapped within the device of her own sexuality, her own feminism, her own body.
Yeah.
She has dreams. You see those dreams coming out.
Yes.
That's part of the sequence, that is one of the things I loved about this movie. I loved how they interspersed the scenes within the reality.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to question, at what point is Roxy daydreaming, and at what point is she actually on the stage? Because even though you firmly know she is standing there
mm-hmm.
in a prison cell, or she's standing there in her apartment, or she's in all the different places, you still think, but maybe she's thinking of past her.
So, that's what I'm saying. I was going to, actually,
Sorry.
I was literally going to say that. I always felt that those scenes where she's on stage, so you know how at the end of the play, it's her and Velma getting together, and they're on this big stage and they're performing. That's how I saw those scenes, are like she's reliving her story on stage, and she's telling the audience. So when it would flash to her being on stage, that was her telling that scene.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's true at all.
I don't know if that's true at all.
But I love that, because for me, it makes the movie so much more interesting to think that these are the flashbacks are the reality
because
bits.
she talks to the audience even as she's singing.
Right.
So you're getting that, like, my favorite is when she's singing the Roxy Hart song, and she's like, I love you and you love me, and I love you for loving me. And that's because we never got enough love in our childhood. And that's showbiz. It was just such a give and take, and I love it.
So I agree. I think that if I get past the upper level stuff, where I go the society or societal issues with being in the past, or even now, being here now, we all have our issues. Some are worse than others. But I think that when you get to the storyline itself, and then how it extrapolates off into societal issues and stuff, but just the story itself, where Roxy gets in trouble because she kills a man who screwed her over. And this is why I feel for her, because she's already trapped in a marriage.
Believed he was going to help her.
Yeah, she thought he was going to at least get her on stage. So at least she'd be doing something with her life, because the ultimate thing is surviving is not enough in life. You can only survive for so long. You have to actually thrive in some way. You have to find the things that make you want to live. Surviving isn't living. Surviving is a mode in life. It is not living. So when Roxy is starting out here, she is in survival mode. And she progresses through survival mode all through the prison time. The one time she starts to get power is when you see her change her attitude. She starts changing about the time she gets arrested. And you notice that when she starts actually speaking to Amos like another person would speak to another person without a gender definition or gender role being assigned.
Mm-hmm.
She's mad at him. She's pissed at him for being a stool pigeon because he could have gotten her off.
Yeah.
But he got mad.
Well,
Maybe
yeah.
rightfully so, but let's face it, again, they weren't in love. She married him because it was expected.
Yeah.
And because society said, this is what you do. She wanted a life on stage. How did he not know that? How did Amos not know that?
Yeah.
Either he never listened to her say it, or he ignored her when she did say it. There's no way she just never said anything and just went out on him. So, this has to be a progression of some kind. And I really think that when we look at both sides, okay, Velma and Roxy, they are not two sides of the same coin. They are the same coin. They're the same side.
Mm-hmm.
They both are still fighting against this whole expectations that are laid upon them. Velma is expected to just play her part.
Yes.
And not to react to something that they know damn well she's going to react to. If your sister's sleeping with your husband, it's going to cause a reaction.
Yeah. I mean, and you're right about the societal expectations. One of the lines that she says in All That Jazz is, "No, I'm no one's wife, but I love my life." And that always hit me too, because that expectation of being a wife, being belonging to somebody, because that's what it was. It was belonging to somebody, not in a good way. But she's saying that in the song, like, fuck you. I am part of this hot mess jazz culture, and I don't care. This is my life, and I'm so happy to be here. But there's one thing she says later, or early on, that was why I kind of giggled in the beginning, because it wasn't even a funny line, but I giggled in the beginning of the movie, is when she's arriving at the club to perform, and they're like, where's your sister? Da, 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 da. And she's like, I can do it alone. And I laughed because I knew that later on, when she sings the song to Roxy to get her to come and be her partner, the line in the song is, but I can't do it alone. And it's like that throwback that I never caught all those times I watched it. And this was my comfort movie. Weirdly, a comfort movie for me.
But I think when we watch comfort movies, we are in unless something changes in your life, when you watch a comfort movie, that movie has a definition for you.
Mm-hmm.
It has the parts you pay attention to. And then when you change your life in some way and you watch that comfort movie again, the definition changes again.
True.
And
I see that.
I've definitely done that with, how I am about watching and rewatching things over and over again. I can tell you my comfort movies like Bye Bye Birdie. Say again, another musical that is not on your wheelhouse.
No, I used to love Bye Bye Birdie. I mean, I was like so close to being in a performance of Bye Bye Birdie in my intermediate school. It was because when the kids were little and we didn't have cable and all we had was a DVD player, our youngest would play it on a fucking loop, and I can't even begin to listen to those songs because
sorry.
I will throw up. That in Enchanted, I can't even watch Enchanted, and I loved Enchanted. Can't watch it.
Well, that was our movie. Our daughter and I share that movie. That's something we always had.
God. But she would literally, it would end and she'd start it right back up.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that was when she was little, and she's 23 now, and I still want to throw the movie across the building.
So the things in that movie, not to segue into,
I mean, it's all
Bye Bye Birdie.
about Dick Van Dyke anyway.
Yeah. But the things I found in that movie for comfort changed during different parts of my life because I've always loved that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And when I was young, it meant something vastly different than it does now. The last time I saw Bye Bye Birdie, I haven't watched it since.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's different for me now if I were to watch it, but I just come out.
True.
And there are those parts of the movie where I love being a girl, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that spoke directly to me my whole life, but in different ways. They sometimes earlier in my life, it was shouting at me.
Yeah.
And then when I came out, it was consoling me.
Yeah.
And now I think I would find it just a comforting thing and not actually speaking to me directly, but maybe speaking to a past me. So when you're watching Chicago as a comfort movie, what about that comfort? What is it now as opposed to before? What is that brings you comfort?
So before, and this is, we're going to get deep into my psychology right here. Like I said before, I was going through a lot of shit, and the relationship I was in was not very good. And so not only did the songs hit me in a way, like, they were empowering. And in Billy Flynn, I was kind of, I wanted the Billy Flynn to come in and save me because I didn't see what a creeper he was. I was young. But I wanted the Billy Flynn to come and find me and save me from the prison. I wanted that because that's my mind, that was my life. And I wanted the power that those women were finding in themselves. And I didn't know how to tap into that power for myself. So I would watch this movie almost like it was unlocking some type of secret. Even though I never got very deep into it, it was all about the music and all about the songs. I would I would dance and sing in my house by myself. I would clean the house and put the kids down for naps, and I would sing and dance. And, there was nobody there to watch me. So I had the whole house to be stupid in. And so that was my other part. And also that part of me that this is before I had ever ever got a chance to actually do musical theater outside of school. So I wanted to do it. I wanted to play Velma Kelly. If I ever, obviously I'm way too old now, but there were always two roles I always wanted to play. I never wanted to be a lead in any play. Whenever I would audition for plays, there's only one lead I've ever auditioned for, even though I knew I wasn't going to get the part, and that was for Snow White. I was in my 30s. It was just because I knew that was the only time I was going to get to play Snow White. And there's reasons why she's my favorite princess. Don't come at me. They are legit. Yes, there's problems with Snow White, but don't at me. I'm talking to, yeah. But if I had ever, like, in my wildest dreams, I looked and was the age I needed to be, there's only two major roles I would love to be. And one of them is Velma Kelly, and the other one is Princess Fred from Once Upon a Mattress. Because Princess Fred is the shit. But that's it. I was in my head, I was Velma Kelly, and I could sing those songs. And also I have this thing about trying to work my vocal cords, because even though I don't think I'm that great of a singer, I like to sing a lot. And those notes are a fuck to hit.
Yeah.
So you know how, like, in the movie, they switched over to Roxy doing that high note?
Yeah.
They do that in the movie. I don't know if they do that in the play, but again, I've only ever heard the song being sung by one person as the main, and that note is not a fun note to hit.
I would imagine, yeah.
But it's fun to try. I would, like, my voice would crack and I'd be loud, and
it's like trying to sing "Take on Me."
Yeah.
It's not about hitting the note.
It's about the fun of trying to hit the note.
Yeah.
And I have that type of voice where for me to hit higher notes, I have to get louder.
Yeah.
So it's, low notes and high notes, I have to get very loud to do them. So yeah, that was it for me. It was me hiding behind the story to build this fantasy world, because I live in this make-believe world. And even now, I'm not going to lie, I still live in my little make-believe worlds, but it's not as an escape like it had been.
But that's actually kind of apropos, because in the movie, they are daydreaming about performing. That's part of their feelings, and that's what you are just described as
So-
doing the same thing they did.
If I could not play Velma Kelly, do you know who else I would want to play in Chicago?
Amos?
I would want to play Mama Morton.
Okay.
And a few years back when I was still going on my associate's degree and I was nowhere near where I am right now, I had to take an elective and I took chorus and I got to sing When You're Good to Mama. And which was actually kind of funny. The performance is online. If you can find it, bless your heart, you get to deal with that. But the piano player for our performance, he had not been with us for any of our other rehearsals. And he came in because our other piano player, I don't remember what happened to him. He couldn't seem to get the music right. And so he was screwing up all my cues. So I ended up just ignoring the piano player and singing the song. And I don't even know if it sounded good. Like, I refused to watch that video.
They got the one piano player who couldn't play piano.
Exactly. It was, he could play, but he seemed to not be able to play my song.
Did you have the sheet upside down?
I don't know, hon. It was weird. Like, I had no cues coming in, and then I couldn't hear his notes. The best thing about that performance was when the other two ladies and I did the song from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That was like...
That is definitely another movie I want to do.
Yes, I do love that movie.
Now,
too.
that is a
There's
movie.
so much in that movie.
I love the music in it.
See, like, that would be a two-parter because
Yeah.
it's the music, it's the history, it's
Oh, yeah.
the...
Oh, yeah, the Odyssey. We're talking about, like, there's so much.
Yeah, but...
We're bringing up all these other movies.
Yes, but I did perform both of those songs.
But that's the thing is they bring, this is something that, if you get into one musical, you're probably into a lot of musicals.
Yeah.
It's the same with the movies about the musicals or
Yeah.
a filmography of the music itself.
It's, again, this play has always been, the movie has, since I've seen it, since 2002 when I saw it, it's always been just a huge part. And you can, like, ask the kids too, what's your mom's favorite?
I believe you.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't mean you specifically. I'm just saying, you could ask my children and they would be like, yeah, my mom used to listen to that soundtrack all the time. So yeah, it's definitely, it means a lot to me. You know who I thought I was really surprised by their performance, though, was Amos. I didn't know John C. Reilly could sing.
Oh, you haven't seen some of his Will Ferrell movies?
No, no. I was not I saw, this is older than him and Will Ferrell being in movies together.
Yeah.
So I had not seen him. I'd seen his face in many, many movies, not knowing really who he was. And him singing Mr. Cellophane. Do you want to know why I know Mr. Cellophane? Because we already established that all that jazz is from the commercials.
I'm going to guess it's because he was introduced to you by Rubber Band Man.
You are so close, but no. Ben Vereen did it on The Muppet Show.
Oh, okay.
That's how old I am, y'all. That's it. I just right then and there. Muppet Show, Ben Vereen. And if you know who those two things are and put them together, yeah, you got it. So that's how I knew that song was Ben Vereen performing that on The Muppet Show.
I did not know he did that. But that's funny.
I have the first season of The Muppet Show, and I believe it's in one of those episodes.
Wow. So I've already said everything I can say about this movie. No, I'm saying that because I've got all these notes and they all center around what I've talked about, which is we're talking about, justice. And we're not even talking about the justice system.
No, because we know that was a load of shit in that whole entire situation.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously satirized.
But you can take into consideration the corruption of the time. The 20s were notorious for corruption when it came to the justice system. And Chicago, New York, these are the big cities that had the highest of corruptions. Chicago, when you think Chicago, you think of the gangs and you think of Al Capone and the corruption.
Prohibition.
Yeah, you think of that. So that's why I don't think I ever really blinked about this movie being so far from the actual judicial system, because I knew at that time period it was just shit.
I think that when we're talking about Billy Flynn as a lawyer,
yes,
being a smarmy, he was only interested in the money. He doesn't care about the law. This is about him winning the cases so that he can get more money. When we're talking about that, it is easy to see that as something that was clear in the 20s. It was okay.
Yeah.
They didn't, sure, they had their ethics and everything, but, there were a lot of lawyers just playing it loose. And let's face it, the judges and the prosecutors are playing it pretty damn loose too.
Oh, yeah.
And now when we look at it, you try to get a defense lawyer to lie for you, not going to happen.
Oh, no.
Unless, they're the worst defense lawyer ever, because they have, a real board, a judicial board that could take their license away.
And meanwhile, he knew that doctor was lying about her being pregnant. And he was like, will you testify that? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, good, your fly's down. Because, she was giving him some, I'll give you head if you tell my lawyer I'm knocked up. And then he knew that that's what she did. And so he was willing to go along with the lie if the doctor was going to support that lie. And that's, again, you're seeing the corruption right then and there.
Well, yeah, the corruption, again, do you think...
Give them the old razzle-dazzle.
Do you think that Roxy would have just blown a random doctor if there wasn't power that she had to bow to?
Oh, yeah. But that was her power.
No, it wasn't her power. She's trapped within a system. Billy is saying... You need to get his, he needs to give you that approval.
But see, I don't think that, I didn't see it as Billy Flynn saying, you need to do whatever you have to get this doctor to. I saw it as her not telling Billy that that's what as far as she knows and as far as Billy knows, Billy thinks she's pregnant and she believes that Billy thinks that she's pregnant. I saw that as her getting the doctor on her side to convince Billy that that's what it was. I didn't see it as Billy telling her, get the doctor to be on our side.
I think it's going to be subjective.
I think so.
But I don't.
But see, that's how I saw it. I saw it as her taking her power going, I'll do this because this is my choice to convince you to be on my side.
But I think that's what a lot of women tell themselves is my choice to do it. But really, if you're in a patriarchal society, then it isn't your choice to do it.
No.
It is something that you're forced to by society as a coping or survival mechanism to say it's my choice.
Oh, no. And
it's convincing you. It's like women's segregation in sports is completely accepted. Mm-hmm. It is entirely accepted. I do not understand because men have convinced women that they are weak.
They're weaker, yeah.
Which is not the case at all. It's just if you aren't competing at the same levels, you're never going to develop beyond that.
Yeah.
So to say that, that all men are stronger than women is crazy. Women beat men in sports all the time. And if they were all competing in the same sports, men would lose to women. And they see women as weak, so therefore they would be seen as weak. So men cannot compete with women in sports, so they segregate them. And somehow, societally, that was accepted as the norm, as okay. Not one person, I would think, that had any shred of decency in them would think segregating black folk from sports is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, it's okay to do it to women.
And I see what you're saying. And I see that that if society wasn't set up the way it was, then she wouldn't need to do that to get him to be convinced to side with her.
Right.
But as
I may be taking it too far, but that's what I saw.
I'm not saying that you're taking it too far. I mean, again, you're right. It's subjective. We don't know what Billy Flynn knows at that moment. We just know what he thinks he knows. But what I saw was you don't know what happened in that room until you put two and two together. You see her in the background getting dressed again. She had a checkup. Not to say that that's something unheard of, she's putting her clothes back on. it's his comment about the zipper. And that's when you go, oh shit. But I don't think it was Billy telling her to do it. And I do think that it was her idea to do it because she has realized that her sexuality is her power. She had Amos. She had Fred. Fred fucked her over. She killed him. He's out of the picture. She can still keep, she gets Amos to pay for so many things for her. He pays for the lawyer $5,000, which would be like over $60,000 nowadays. She uses that power to convince by changing it from being overly sexual to being completely demure, and convinces all the journalists and everything else that she is so innocent and she's so sweet. She knows how to use her femininity. She gets to use all of that for her benefit. And she's using it on both extremes, whether it is in sexual favors or just pretending to be this doe-eyed, innocent child. I think that Roxy just has all the power. She knows how to use that power. And I also think that that's part of why Velma gets so testy with her when she starts to become popular, is because Velma doesn't know how to pull off the innocence. She's a vamp. Velma has that sultry sexuality, just as a natural, because that's what Catherine Zeta-Jones is, just naturally that deep, sultry, there's a depth to her. And she doesn't have, I can't see Catherine Zeta-Jones pulling off innocence. Catherine Zeta-Jones is Morticia Addams. She has that gravitas.
Yeah, she's more of a siren than an innocent.
So to play something as innocent and pure, and not to say that that's a bad thing, she just doesn't have that ability. I can play vapid really well, but not everybody can play vapid. I don't always play smart well, but I can play vapid really good.
I've been faking smart for years.
Oh, me too, yeah.
So, that said, yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. I see it differently, but I think that's okay because, again, this is supposed to, I think it's deliberate.
And I'm not trying to convince you of my perspective of it.
I think it's deliberate in its subjectiveness.
Oh, definitely.
That you're allowed to come to the conclusion you come to based upon how who you are watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a lot of ways, a lot of this movie, even Billy Flynn's true motivations, you're left kind of wondering, is it truly all he cares about is money?
Mm-hmm.
Does he care about the women? And by that, I mean having sex with them, hanging out with them. Does he care about the actual law? What does he cares about? And
it's money.
He's more of a Svengali.
Yeah, he cares about the money. That's the irony in the Billy Flynn song is, he's talking about how all he really cares is love. Cares about his love, and yet he's immediately, well, I'm not going to help. I think her name is, oh God, I can't remember the name of the girl, the Hungarian girl.
The one innocent woman.
Because I don't want to call her by the name that they give her, because the name that they give her, so she has a name, which again, I can't remember, but the name that they call her is actually a slang term for Hungarians at that time.
Yeah.
And it's the other, they do that. At one point, I can't remember if it's Velma or if it's Roxy, but they use a slang term for Billy Flynn being Irish. So they do use a lot of that derogatory speech. But again, 1920s. It's just, yeah, I don't know. But that's what's weird about it too, is that one minute you're calling people names based on their backgrounds,
ethnicity.
their ethnicity, but you've got Mama Morton, who is a Black woman with blonde hair. I love that how she jumps on the Roxy bandwagon and bleaches her hair blonde.
I think that also speaks, and when we're talking about Mama Morton,
mm-hmm.
it speaks to the fact that she is always there to profit, but she never gets to get out of that prison.
True. She doesn't. And she does try to make a profit, but she knows how to shift power too.
Yeah, but we're talking about someone who is just as trapped as the other girls
Oh,
are.
yeah.
She's just as trapped as they are.
Mm-hmm.
She can profit off them, but she never gets to grow or to go anywhere. She is trapped there. When you look at it that way, you understand, like, the people that are in the band.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're all black,
I think
right?
they are.
And they never get to go anywhere. They're literally
At the bar.
there. That's
at the
where they are. You don't see their existence outside of that.
No.
Say for Taye Diggs, who shows up whenever they need something. Like, they need him to play piano in a scene, he's the one that plays it.
Mm-hmm.
He's the announcer.
Mm-hmm.
He's
almost like the narrator, unofficial narrator of the play.
Right. But they are all in concert acting only in the interests of the people that are white.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about the same for Mama Morton, despite her saying she's in charge.
Oh, yeah.
She's still just as much a prisoner as everyone else.
So when they do introduce her and she's doing her song, she's performing for white people.
Right.
I mean, she is on stage and she is playing up to white men and women, and her song has a lot of innuendo, which is pretty straightforward innuendo, but it is innuendo.
It's also self-effacing.
And it is self-effacing innuendo. But you can see that she's doing it to appease the mass in front of her. And that would, again, you're right about, she is in her own cage and she's got to perform for these people. And yes, there were air quotes I used that you could not see. Sorry, I tend to forget.
Well,
I'm a little
I'm
a little rusty with my people skills. Sorry. Once
you can
again,
actually feel the hand quotes.
And if I don't make a reference to Supernatural at least once an episode, I'm a miss.
So how do you feel now about Chicago, now that I've dissected it down to make it really horrifying for you? And I'm very sorry about that.
No.
How do you feel about it?
So what's funny is my note. So when I do my feelings before, I usually like 3 or 4 things, and usually they're 1-word statements or they're like little phrases. So like my before was excited, loved story, my go-to comfort movie, because I can read my own handwriting, y'all. But for my current feelings, I wrote perspective change. Because, again, I'm not a 20-something needing rescue.
Right.
Feminism/sexism is what I wrote. And songs with 3 underlines. Because the songs always make me happy. Even when they are just, I can't even explain it. Because, again, Billy Flynn pisses me off now, where he'd never pissed me off before. But I'll still sing his songs. I'll still sing the Billy Flynn songs. I'll still sing. I mean, and you guys are lucky because now Beth has got to listen to me sing Chicago for the next month because it's in my head now. I'm going to want to keep listening to these songs. They are comforting songs for me because, again, I know the words, I know the keys.
Yeah.
They are fun. And I like to sing them. Again, not like I think I'm good. I just like to sing. So, yeah. So what's changed for you? I guess nothing has changed for you?
No, things have changed. But when I saw it before, again, it's not my movie, really.
Mm-hmm.
I was disinterested. I noticed, the things I just talked about, the injustice of things. But the feminism in it was a little bit lost on me because I didn't know how to place it. I was still in that area of trying to place.
Well, I didn't see feminism the way I understand feminism now as a empowering that, that they went through.
So I had to come to that. And in this, it definitely defined it down for me. Hold on, there's a cat here on my mic and it's bothering me. Our Grease cat, he gets hair. So, now, when we watched it this time, I was still fairly disinterested because, again, just not my movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little bit more interested, but I really went into this thing of, dissecting down the layers of the different issues. And, I listed out a whole bunch of stuff about, celebrity and fame, which is also part of that trap.
Yeah.
To get celebrity and to get fame, you have to do these things. And once you do those things, you get this thing. But now that thing is the cage you're in. So you get out of a cage of being in this loveless marriage, for her loveless.
Yeah.
And then she gets fame, which is also its own cage, which they don't really get into.
No.
In her imaginings, though, that fame and celebrity starts to play a part, and it starts to build that cage for her as you can see it happening.
Yes, definitely.
She is trapped. And one instance of this is very poignant, I believe, is when Billy and her argue about the dress. She doesn't want to wear the dress.
And the knitting.
And the knitting.
And then...
And she wants to not wear that and not knit while she's on the stand. And he says, you need to do it. I'm the lawyer. And I said, I never lose a case.
Yeah.
And she fires him.
Yep.
Because she's mad because she wants her way. And this is that part where she thinks she has the power because she's getting celebrity. She thinks she has the power to get away with that. She realizes very quickly at the hanging of the one innocent woman in prison, which is also its own injustice. And she realizes very quickly she has no power because the actual power is in how you can affect yourself in society. Celebrity only gets you so far. You have to have that fame to go with it. And once you have that, you can ride that for a while, but it never lasts.
Yes.
And we don't see that because we get the end, which just cuts off. And that's actually a nice thing of you don't know what happens. You don't know how their lives turn out because it doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah.
They're at the peak of their ability. They're at the peak of their performance. They're at the peak of their celebrity and fame. Anything beyond that returns them to the other cages.
Yes.
So they're just hamsters in different parts of this tunnel system. And that is what we are in life. We all have our cages that we are put into. Some have less bars, but we all have those cages. And I know that I'm going on about this, but to me, that's what I see. That's what I'm seeing in the movie. That is what drives me in Chicago to finish the film, is because I know there's a story here, but honestly, I didn't pay attention to it. I was paying attention to the story above that. The other layer of the film, which is all about these tides and ebbs of justice and sexuality and your place within society, that's what moves me in this film. And the music is almost secondary to me because it doesn't hold the appeal it does to you.
Yeah.
Or that you hold, that you have for it. I appreciate the film. I appreciate the music. I appreciate the dancing more than anything else.
Dancing is...
had to have worked their asses off.
Oh,
all of them.
Acrobatic dances.
Every one of them had to have worked their asses off to be able to do the things they did. I mean, when you're saying Richard Gere did, the tap dancing, he took 3 months of tap dancing just to learn like a 20-second segue. Or a 20-second vignette, actually.
Yeah.
Say segue, but a vignette that lasts hardly any time. There is a marker of his rhythm change.
And his tap dancing, the way he's manipulating the...
Right, that's him changing his rhythm from the smarmy to the sharp legal mind that he is.
Yeah.
Is when he starts tap dancing is when he actually starts going in for the kill.
It's funny because we talked about, the Hungarian woman and her innocence. Did you look at the translation of what she's saying?
No.
So basically what it was saying...
I know it said I am innocent. That's one of them.
You don't know if she is innocent. What it was is basically they found her with her lover, but also it could have been the word neighbor, that they cut off the head of this other person. And that when she came, she told the police that she was innocent, but they didn't listen to her. They didn't understand her. So you don't know if she truly is innocent. Did she help cut this dude's head off? I don't know.
For me, thematically, it makes sense that she is the one innocent person.
Because nobody can understand her.
In this entire film, she is the one innocent person. Not just because she's not understood, but because no one cares to find out.
Nobody's trying to get an interpreter or something. Funnily enough, the actress Ekaterina, I'm gonna butcher this, y'all. I'm so sorry. Chechelkanova.
Sure.
Okay. She's actually Russian. So her Hungarian had a thick Russian accent to it. And even Hungarians, from what I was reading, had a hard time understanding her. And then, like, when she sees Billy and she's trying to get him, she's saying, "Help, please help." She says that in Russian, not in Hungarian.
That's adorable.
So I have a ton of trivia before we move on, because I have to get it out of my system, because I take these notes and I don't use them, and it's really been frustrating me. Because I don't like to write stuff down and then not use it. Okay. So right before they introduce Mama Morton, Roxy's sitting in a holding area, I guess, and the guard yells to no smoking in here, and they show the woman who's smoking, and it's an older woman, and it is Chita Rivera, and Chita Rivera originated the role on Broadway.
Oh, okay.
And so that's the little nod there. John C. Reilly had a real love of clowns. I couldn't get the word out. Why couldn't I think of the word clowns? He designed his clown makeup. He really wanted that. That was his design for Mr. Cellophane. So that was very special for him.
Okay.
John Travolta was originally asked to play Billy Flynn, and he turned it down. So this would make the fourth movie that John Travolta turns down and Richard Gere picked up. The other three are American Gigolo, Days of Heaven, which I don't know that movie, and Officer and a Gentleman, which I did not.
Oh, wow.
I know.
So many he should have picked up.
I know. And so my last little trivia thing is that the rights of the play were bought by Martin Richards in the 70s. He was going to make the movie, I guess, in 87. And they were going to cast Goldie Hawn, Liza Minnelli, and Frank Sinatra. But when Fosse died in 87, the whole project was junked. I'm not sure why they couldn't do it without Fosse. They still use his, those are his dance moves and everything. So Fosse. We got to do Birdcage too, because that's one of the lines in the Birdcage when they're doing the dances. Fosse, Twyla. So that's my trivia. Da, 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 da. There are a lot of actors in this movie that I thought needed to be mentioned. We did mention most of them, but we didn't mention Maya, which she sings in the Cell Block Tango. And I don't know what happened to Maya, but I used to love her. Like, she did the song for the Rugrats movie too. I don't know what she was also in. She did the not compilation. That's not the word I'm looking for. The Moulin Rouge song, the Lady Marmalade. She did that with Pink and Christina Aguilera.
Okay.
So yeah, Maya is she was.
I know who you're talking about now.
Yeah,
it took forever for that to hit, but yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and we mentioned Taye Diggs, we mentioned Christine Baranski. Yeah, I think I just.
There were a lot of people in this film.
A lot of people I didn't even name, but those were the big heavy hitters that I could think of that people might recognize the names of.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's see if this passes the Castellini test.
My guess is it will.
So the Castellini test is to kind of gauge, using probably some logic as well, whether or not there's quality or equity in the film. Okay. There's a lot of different ways it could go. Are you shooting for equality or are you shooting for equity? Because they're two different things, but
Diversity and inclusion as well.
Yeah, sometimes you hit one thing and sometimes you miss another. So, but let's see if it hits feminism at all. There have to be at least 2 named women characters with at least 5 lines of dialogue each.
Roxy Hart and Velma Kelly.
I mean, I think we have that.
Mama Morton, Mary
Mama
Sunshine.
Morton. Yeah. Those characters must have a conversation, not necessarily with the other woman, either not about their partner or with their partner, future or current, and not about their relationship.
So while they murdered people they were in relationships with, Roxy and Velma, they talk about showbiz.
Hardly any of them talk about their partners in any way.
No, not unless they're talking about the people that they actually murdered.
Not unless it's like case driven.
Yeah.
But, Mama Murphy talks about... Morton, sorry. Mama Morton talks about the case. She talks about wanting money. They're not talking about relationships.
Nope. And Mary Sunshine talks about the cases.
This is going to be an easy one. This is the layup. At least one of the women has to be integral to the plot, meaning that if she were written out of the film, it wouldn't reach the same ending.
Pretty much. I mean, I'm not going to say they all are, because even if you take Mary Sunshine and you take Mama Morton out, the plot can still continue. But if you take Roxy Hart and Velma Kelly out of the equation, oh heck no, what's the point? It's the Billy Flynn show.
Smarmy lawyer.
It's the Billy Flynn show.
Which is not great. Not great at all.
No. But if you ever want to see like the best performance of Billy Flynn, it is Jerry Orbach doing it. And you can look that up on YouTube. And a lot more sexual.
It was very sexual. Television.
Yes.
It was very weird.
All those panties. It was like watching Cabaret.
I can link that in the show notes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be funny.
I'll link that in the show notes. Send me that link.
I will. But yeah, I mean...
we just watched it, last week?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, yeah. That, I mean, it's literally like they were dressed for Cabaret.
Yeah.
And yet they were singing Billy Flynn.
It was quite crazy. So... it passes the Castellini test.
Castellini.
It is...
a feminist movie!
Feminist movie, believe it or not.
So if you would like to watch Chicago, you can watch it on Amazon Prime, YouTube, Google Play, Apple TV, Fandango, and it's going to run you about $3.79 to $3.99 as per usual if you would like to rent it. Our next week. This movie, here's our clues. There are 3. One's very short. This movie was chosen to honor, we'll use the word honor, a departed actor. The second clue is it is possibly the first openly gay lead in an action movie. And the third clue is when the leads kiss, one of them said that they had to think of Kevin Bacon to get in the mood. And I'm going to throw this one in here. I've never seen this movie. So this one will be interesting because I have
That is not a clue for anyone but me.
No clue, but I have no preconceived thoughts other than what I've read to find my clues. Okay. And now my curiosity is piqued because, gay was the best word there.
I think you'll like it. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
But we'll see. We'll see later this week, I guess.
Somebody try to guess. Please, somebody try to guess.
Let us know.
Are my clues too hard or are they too easy?
Maybe too vague in some ways.
Maybe. I'm trying
I don't
know.
I couldn't tell you. Unless we have feedback.
Yes. Looking at you, peoples.
So until next time, keep feeling things deeply. Keep living life. Don't trap yourself in a cage. Try to understand the perspective of others. Treat each other well. Be human beings.
And all that jazz.
This has been Once More with Feelings with Beth and Michelle. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at OMWFpod. Visit our page at oncemorewithfeelings.podbean.com. Or you can send us an email at omwfpod@gmail.com. Take a moment to subscribe and rate us on iTunes and YouTube.
Until next time, folks.
and all that jazz.
How is it to you?
Well, you wanted my advice, right? Well, here it is. Don't forget, Billy Flynn's #1 client is Billy Flynn.
Meaning what?
Meaning, don't let him hog the spotlight. You're the one they pay to see.